Hello everyone and welcome to the beautiful Sugarloaf Mountain. My name is Rick McLaughlin and joining me today, Senior Vice President of Product Development for Vittoria, Mr. Ken Avery. I don't think tyre nerds get any bigger with all due respect, but we're here to talk about what people need to be thinking about when they go to buy their next set of tyres. So I've walked into a bike shop, I need to buy 2 new tyres. What should I be thinking about first and foremost?
Well, the reason you choose a tire is always terrain, right? So it's whatever you're trying to conquer, right? Whatever your goals are. If you are, an Enduro racer, you're gonna have a big variance of terrain. You're gonna have dry conditions, hard pack stuff. You're gonna have mixed, loose, rock on these kind of alpine kind of environments. You're gonna inevitably have a wet day, right? It's gonna rain at some point. You need to be well equipped with choices for each.
Okay. We had 2 extremely wet days here at EWS Sugarloaf back to back, and now we're both baking in the sun. So let's talk about, do you have to consider things like, I guess, dirt type, dirt sort of consistency?
Yeah,
what's sort of local to you, what's good?
We're gonna go deep on the tech door.
I'm ready.
Let's do this. I mean, at the end of the day, it's how your tires dig into the dirt to create that grip, but also how they clean, right? So that's a factor because you'd like your tire to clean out so the next revolution, you have a fresh contact patch that can replicate that grip from a minute ago, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really critical that you kind of know what you're up against in order to have the best option.
In terms of compound then, whereabouts in my list of things I should be looking for does compound come?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, right, Enduro is gonna be a lot about grip. And compound is going to play a big role in that. So you're going to want something that's quite soft and pliable. It needs to be firm enough to dig into soft terrain, right? And it also needs to be firm enough to be stable so that it doesn't just flop over or rip off. You see that oftentimes in performance tires. However, it needs to be soft enough to have that tactile grip. So even on a wet day, say you have like mud everywhere, there's still going to be rocks and roots underneath that mud. Mm-hmm. So it's really critical that then that tire can get through the mud, but still grip on wet rocks and roots. And that's like kind of an extreme case. On the other end of the spectrum, on say a dry day, your tires aren't going to penetrate into like say bedrock or maybe hard pack. It's going to be more of a surface phenomenon. So that compound then needs to kind of handle those conditions as well. So for that reason, we have a bit of a range of tires that cater towards this exact use.
In terms of tread design, I mean, a tire like the Mazda, it looks like quite a simple blocky design, but when you actually get close to it and look a bit deeper, there's lots of little sipes, there's lots of little grooves. How complicated is something like that?
Oh, it's a super crazy design challenge because at the end of the day, you want the tire to roll fast, but then still grip and then still be durable enough to last, right? So the joke is speed, grip, durability, pick 2.
Yeah.
But in reality, we try to design for all 3. And so for that reason, you'll see like a lot of detail on all of the tread designs. And then even just the compound tech itself is a lot deeper than maybe people realize.
Race day. You're going up for what's obviously going to be the career-making fastest run. We've seen in the EWS different times as well, a lot of the teams will they'll actually put a scrubbed tyre on, so a used tyre, and the thinking there a bit is that it's got a bit of dirt through it, it's taken the sort of whatever the finish from the factory's off. Is that a bit of a sort of an urban myth, or?
So it's good to scrub in your tires regardless, just to make sure that you have that consistency, right? Any tire that comes out of a mold, may still have what's known as mold release on it or something like that. So if you're putting a tire on for the first time, you definitely want to do some of those turnies in the parking lot, scrub it up a little bit, make sure that that's all clean, and you'd be ready to go.
Let's talk now about front and rear designs. I run Mazda's front and rear. Should I be on a rear specific tire or?
Depends on the terrain.
Right, okay. Here, for argument's sake, let's say EWS Sugarloaf.
Sure.
Should I be on a different tire on the rear or?
So today is a bluebird day. We had some rain, it kind of dried up. It's that typical trademark New England kind of dirt, so it's grippy right now. Mazza is a great combination. If I were racing today, I would run Mazza. Earlier in the week, I may have run maybe a Moda, maybe in the rear.
And is that to clear a bit better?
Yeah, so like when you're going down steep sections, hitting the brakes a lot, you want to make sure that that tire is fresh as it rotates around so that it has a lot of spacing to clear out and create that grip. Then, you know, if it were to continue on this kind of weather pattern and it stayed dry, I would definitely throw maybe a Martello in back because it's going to roll a little faster. It's going to have a bit more surface area for that tactile grip on dry conditions.
In terms of then things like tubeless systems, which are obviously really prevalent now throughout the tyre industry, how big a challenge is that for you guys to factor in when you're designing the new tyre? Is that something that people buying a new set of tyres should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everybody's riding tubeless, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, too many people are even riding inserts, which is great. It's like another kind of level of protection and performance gain. But yeah, you know, when you design a tire and a tread pattern and a compound and casing that all go together, it's all about how that tire deforms. And I know that may sound kind of nerdy or whatever, but really, at the end of the day, you want that tire to deform to the ground to have the greatest contact patch to then create that performance that you're after when you chose that tire for that specific terrain.
How many hours do you think you spent testing
Hours?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Is it easier to say years?
I mean, I've been
Days?
in this game for over 20 years, just as a product designer.
Is it hard to switch off from? Do you get on a new bike with new tires, and is it hard to?
It's impossible to switch. Once you kind of like get the train of thought and you start kind of like touching things and start kind of, you know, experimenting. Yeah, I mean, as a designer, your brain's always working. And, oh, what if we did this, or what if we cut this way or that way? And it's really about trying to like engineer directional flex. And we're going to get into that with the tread patterns, but yeah, like each kind of like, you know, piece of the tread will flex a certain way, sometimes asymmetrically, as the casing is then deforming as well to the ground. So yeah, it's as a designer, it's hilarious.
And then you got to build durability on top of that. Let's just grab a couple of these in then. We'll grab the Mazza and the Mota, and you can talk me through the differences between these two tires. So we have the Vittoria Mota and we have the Vittoria Mazza. What are the differences between these two tires then?
So we look at these as options for different terrains, right? So your Mazza is going to be kind of your mixed terrain option. So let's start with the Mazza first. It's been super popular for us. It has enough spacing to clean out and when I say clean out, I mean it could be wet, it could be mud, but it could also be dry debris, right? It could be like those little like stones, like kitty litter type, dry conditions type stuff that's cleaning out. At the same time, it's going to be engineered to then roll fast still, and that's really a tall order to say, okay, how do you have spacing, but then still have that tire roll fast? Because if there's too much spacing, you're going to feel that kind of like as it rolls, right? And it's going to ultimately hurt your time. So the first thing I'm going to go into is the center tread on this tire. So you'll see sometimes on tires ramps on the leading edge, right? And that helps, and we do have a little bit of ramping there. But ramping doesn't help you when you climb, right?
No.
So, you know, if you're trying to climb up something technical and you just had ramps, your tire's just going to slide, right? Because you don't have that sharp effective edge. So to get around that, we wanted to make sure that this tire was something you could use front and rear. So for that reason, we put these steps on the leading edge of those knobs. And what that allows for is at speed, it rolls like a ramp.
Yeah.
But in slow, high torque, technical kind of situations, when you're trying to climb up, scramble up stuff, that staircase actually is two effective edges. And so it grips tremendously well climbing, but it still rolls really fast. And those little nuances, people say, oh, why'd you put that little staircase there? Yeah. And it seems so simple, right? But that's the reason.
Let's talk about the business side of things and these side knobs. That's the one thing I think every mountain biker will walk up to a tire and give that a
squeeze the side knob, right?
So you've got some sipes, these called sipes?
Yeah.
Talk us through how the edge grip of a tire like this is going to work.
Yeah, so on any kind of performance tire, especially in the enduro segment, right, you're gonna rely heavily on the grip of your side knobs. And the inside effective edge is whatever side of the knob is doing the work, right? So on a side knob, it happens to be that inside edge coming from the center of the tire. It's that first edge that hits on that side knob. So a lot of load's going to go on that side of that knob, and basically like it's going to want to fold the knob over. And if you go up to many mountain bike tires and push sideways on that, that thing will just fold over. And that's actually not a good thing. You want it to be soft, but you want it to be stable. And so what happens is, and maybe you'll be able to relate to this. You know that point where you're way deep in a corner and you have grip, no grip.
I'm familiar with that one, yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically when like it just finally just gives way and folds over, right? The cool thing about the Mazda and even the Martello and the Moda is that it uses progressive sipe width. So the sipe that is closest to the center is actually kind of thicker. And so the idea is that a wider sipe can deform more and basically collapse further than a thinner sipe. So the inside edge, if you actually push on this, is super soft, but look how stable the outside of that knob is. It doesn't fold over. So basically you have a lot of tactile grip, but you have a lot of stability. And that's part of the reason that this tire then actually rolls really fast as well.
How important, I think compound kind of gets it's the big ticket everyone talks about, isn't it? How important is compound for the likes of a Mazda?
Oh, I mean, in this category, compound's super important.
Yeah.
So this particular tire uses 4 compounds. And so it uses a base compound and a surface compound in the center, as well as on the sides. And so the base compound provides that stability. It's that anchor to the casing. But then the surface compound's a lot more gummy, and it gives you that tactile grip across rocks and roots.
So let's bring the Moda in now. So this is a newer tire you guys have released, and face value very similar, just in sort of tread design you'd think to a Mazda, but whenever you actually look a bit deeper, it is slightly wider spaced, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And so this tire is really made for wet and muddy conditions. And this tire is basically going to be designed to work as like a cleat that penetrates that top surface and then also cleans, right? So this is going to be your, it rained right before you change your tire to the wet conditions tires. But as we said earlier, rubber tires don't penetrate rocks and roots, right? It's a surface phenomenon. So you got to make sure that the cleat on that tire is then pliable enough to create that grip.
And is that why, to my eyes anyway, there seems to be more of your siping and there's more material removed from these center knobs? Is that part of that to get to deform a lot more?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to run like mud tires on, say, a hard pack day, it's going to be kind of skittery, right? Because there's like not a lot of surface area. Part of the challenge when you have cleated kind of tread design is that you reduce the surface area of each cleat because you have more space on the casing, right?
Right.
So in reducing that surface area, then the challenge becomes how do you maximize the grip of that surface area that's left? And we do that again with this progressive sipe width pattern. And the cool thing about this actually, if you notice, is that on the leading edge as it rolls, it's pliable, there's a smaller sipe there. But on the trailing edge where the braking is, it's much more flexible. So that's that asymmetrical flex. So one of the challenges as a designer when you design a mud tire is how do you make it roll fast? There's so much spacing and they're really deep treads. So how do you then make that happen? And part of it is this.
What happens to compound then for a mud tire? What do you make it softer because it's got a bigger challenge in terms of traction ahead of it, or?
So you have to have it soft enough to grip, but also have that, that we use that layering, and some tires need it, some tires don't. Sometimes in a performance sense, you just want the softest thing you can get. And so, we used a really soft compound on this, and the tires that our athletes are now using as well also have a very soft compound. So if you were to talk durometers, it's very much at the low scale of the durometer range.
And this could be used for a front and a rear?
Absolutely.
Same as Mazda?
All of our tires can be used front and rear.
Right, let's get the speedy piece in last then, the fast boy, the Martello. Now, I've used this as a rear tire before.
Yeah.
Was that a good decision?
Yeah. So this is, you can use this front or rear. As a front tire, it's not going to have as much of that like channel on the side, like say a Mazda has. So it's great for like if you're just riding like rocks or super hard pack. If you get into kind of more of like everything you may find on a mountain, such as Sugarloaf, like we're sitting at now, works tremendously well as a fast option for a back tire or for like a dry day. And the reason I say that is the spacing is not as pronounced as that Moto we just looked at or even the Mazda. So because the spacing is less, it rolls a little faster. Also, the tread is not quite as deep, but it has all of that siping on it. So when you go over, all the terrain that this is intended for, it still has that like tactile grip at the surface.
Go on, then I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Yeah.
Out of the three of them, what's your favourite?
What
does Ken Avery
run? Oh, no, man, I love them all, right? So it's one of those things where my combination that I typically run is Mazda front, Martello rear.
Right.
And, it's just the kind of thing where it's a great, do almost everything. Like you got like 90% of your options covered. And, I know you've run that combination before.
Yep.
What did you think of that combination?
I thought it was really good on an e-bike.
Why specifically e-bike?
Because you are climbing and you're trying to get power down.
Yeah.
Whereas on my Megatars, I've always run double Matza because where I live in Scotland, let's be polite about it, is often very varied in terms of weather conditions.
Sure.
And it's also important for us that the bikes go in the truck or they go in a bag, and we can come somewhere like this and still be on the right tire and not have to change tubeless setups and stuff. And so I always find the Matza to be a good balance. That said, this heat has got me aching for a lovely damp Scottish day and some motors. So well, there we go then. We did warn you that the tire geekery levels were going to be high on this one. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel for a lot more tech. Stay tuned to all our social media channels so you don't miss any more tire geekery from Ken and myself. Ken, thanks very much.
Dude, thanks, man.